Welcome back. It's time now for our press digest. I'm very delighted to have with us Mr. Mohamed Sheta, the media expert. Good morning, Mr. Sheta.
Very beautiful good morning to you and to your distinguished viewers of Nile TV.
Thank you very much. We're going to start off with Al-Ahram. One of the main banners read, Lebanese President Michel Aoun is in an interview with the editor-in-chief of then paper ahead of his expected state visit on Monday. He says, understanding with Sisi started even before we met because of our common background. The summit talks shall focus on the situation in the region. Cooperation is open in the fields of natural gas discoveries, and the Syrian crisis should end with a settlement. Full cooperation in the field of combating terrorism, and no matter how the war is destructive, now it's far more easy than in the coming stages with the presence of countries financing it. Lebanon can be the of the Arab-Iranian understanding, and reviving paralyzed Arab League should be the top priority of an upcoming Arab summit. Mr. Sheta, of course, Middle East issues are on top of the agenda of the region. An expected visit or a visit by Lebanese President Michel Aoun is expected. So how are you reading this banner from Al-Ahram?
I think the visit, the expected visit of President Michel Aoun is extremely important, not only for Egypt, but also for the regional topics in general. As you mentioned correctly, Lebanon can definitely play a very important role in solving some of the regional conflicts, especially the disputes with Iran over different topics with different countries like Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or the other Gulf states. And also, of course, the influence of Iran in the conflicts, in the other conflicts like the Syrian conflict, for example. And of course, they could also play a very positive role in solving some of the problems related to Yemen, for example. So I think this visit will not only be discussing the bilateral issues between Egypt and Lebanon, but definitely it will also tackle some serious regional issues as well.
From Al-Ahram front page, we read the foreign currency reserve rises to 26.3 billion US dollars, and President says, and I quote, the economy is on the right track and the courage of Egyptians is the main reason behind the success. The foreign reserve rises to 26.3 billion US dollars for the first time in years, and Al-Sisi says continuing efforts to provide suitable environment for sustainable economic growth. Still with the same issue from Al-Akhbar front page, we read the foreign reserve increases to 26.3 billion US dollars, and commencing the work in 25 wheat storehouses in 17 within 2 months. And the president says the economic reform achieves its goals because of understanding of the Egyptian people. In a high-level meeting, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says the economic reform achieved its goals because of the courage and understanding of the people and their patience in bearing with the government the hardships of those economic reforms. And he inaugurates the June 30th access during the celebrations of Sinai Liberation Day. Of course, let's take this very important banner in Al-Akhbar, and both banners are related to each other, Masr al-Yawm and Al-Akhbar.
Yes, actually...
some dim hopes are rising in the horizons, and this is good news.
Actually, yes, this is a very important topic. Regarding the foreign currency reserve, of course, there are many different reasons why it has reached 26.3 billion US dollars. First of all, the Central Bank of Egypt announced a couple of days ago that the spendings of the Egyptians abroad through their credit cards went down from 250 million US dollars in December 2015 to 70 million US dollars in December 2016. That many people used to go to the ATM machines abroad and take all the dollar amounts possible and then travel back with them to Egypt. And of course, this caused a huge damage to the Egyptian economy on different levels. On the other hand, of course, the devaluation of the Egyptian pound definitely also although it only took place a couple of weeks ago, but definitely this is also a very positive indicator that people will now put their US dollar budgets with the banks and not exchange them at the exchange offices, for example, like they used to do when there was a huge gap between the official exchange rate and the black market exchange rate. So this is, of course, those are two of the main reasons why the economy is definitely going into the positive direction. Of course, many international companies have evaluated the Egyptian economy to be number 19th, the 19th strongest economy by during the next couple of years. So all those indicators give a very positive feedback on foreign investors, and this is what we have seen right now.
Should we expect the dollar to be decreasing to the Egyptian pound in the coming?
Yes.
Should we hope more?
Definitely, the exchange rate will change for the benefit of the Egyptian pound, because actually this is always the case in any of the countries like Brazil, like Argentina, which had currency problems. After a while, it takes like 5 to 6
it comes
months.
To a stage of plateau.
Exactly, until it reaches its balance. Still now, of course, during the first 4 to 8 weeks, there are a lot of people who were speculating still with the dollar and making lots of money with it. And I think during the next 5 to 6 months, I think it will go down to probably somewhere between 14 to 15 pounds, which is definitely much better.
Hopefully.
Much better than right now. So,
but hope that will be accompanied by controlling the monopoly in the market and controlling the prices, that some Egyptians see that it's not going in a direct parallel way with the refresh and the the good news that comes with the economic and the floating of the Egyptian pound, the economic
yes.
news. So
you're absolutely right. I think controlling the prices is not doable anymore, because actually we are in a free market and we should stay in a free market. So instead of controlling the prices, you should open the competition. Meaning, open the competition means open the import for foreign products, for competitive products to come to Egypt, and actually make the competition regulate the prices. Actually, I cannot force.
That's a very good idea.
This is the most important idea in all different sectors. I'll just give you an example: the automotive sector, for example. The car prices rose during the past 2 years up to 100% in some cases, which does not make any sense, actually. So the problem is that we have limits on the import of cars, for example. The car a used car which you get in Germany, for example, for let's say 10,000 euros before the so-called before the devaluation we had. So that would mean the car would cost here in Egypt around 100,000 pounds. At the same time, the very same car costs in Egypt 200,000 pounds. So many things are totally overvalued, and I think if we open the import for used cars, for example, this will regulate the car prices in Egypt significantly during a period of less than 4 weeks, for example. So this is one of the things the government should tackle. If they're afraid of losing customs revenue, they can change this revenue with other means. For example, raising taxes or raising the gas prices, for example. There are many things which they can do, or the insurance on cars, for example. And this applies to all the different sectors, not only to the automotive sector. But I cannot force the Egyptian consumer to go buy an Egyptian product which has less quality and is double the price of a product I get, for example, from Germany. This does not make any sense. So the problem is many local investors, some I would call them rather unprofessional investors, they're still asking the government for protection of their industry. I mean, the government has been protecting most of the industrial sectors in Egypt for 30 years. So what happened? Nothing. They just concentrated on the local market. They have huge profit margins compared to the international standards concerning the profit margins abroad, and they were actually exploiting the Egyptian consumer over the past 30 years, and now they want to exploit the Egyptian consumer and the Egyptian economy again for another 10 years, for example, like some of the local assemblers in the automotive sectors, for example, are asking. I think it's over. If you haven't been able to compete over the past 30 years, if you didn't develop your
it's
product,
time to step aside.
It's time to step aside. Let foreign investors come
that
to
make
Egypt,
a lot of sense.
and let also. The problem is, I'll tell you something very interesting. Most of the local investors in Egypt, they do not want foreign investors to come to Egypt. Because if those foreign investors come to Egypt, usually in most of the sectors, the profit margin for any product is around 10%. Here in Egypt, in the automotive sector, for example, they make up to from 30 till 80% profit margin.
80%?
Yes. So while the mother company of a certain brand, for example, in Germany, is selling the car in Germany for the reasonable price with only 10% profit margin, local assembler of the same German luxury brand in Egypt, for example, is selling the car at double the price of the same car in Germany, assembled in Germany by German labor, with German labor costs, and making a huge profit margin. So it's understandable that
Shouldn't they be complying with any universal regulations?
No, actually, because the deal they have with their mother company is that when they started the assembly industry in Egypt 20 years ago, most of the companies only had a capacity of 4,000 cars maximum. And if you want to have an export company, like, for example, the companies we have in Morocco, for example, which are exporting to Europe and other countries, you need to have a capacity of at least 200,000 to 400,000 units a year. So from the very beginning, they never had the intention of exporting cars, actually. Now they're asking the government to give them another 10 years protection in order to be able to compete with the imported products, which of course doesn't make any sense. We know a very famous German brand from Stuttgart which closed their factory actually 2 years ago because the imported cars were were the same price like the locally assembled ones. So they stopped the assembly line. And they never had a plan to export cars, and I think this applies to most of the local investors in Egypt. I hope that President Sisi, for example, if they really want to attract foreign investors, like it said here in the press review, I think President Sisi needs to sit directly with those foreign investors without their local counterparts or without their local representatives.
I guess that's what he has been doing in Germany, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, the guys working arm and hammer, I mean, tooth and nail days and even on weekends. So
yes, but
he's trying every means, and it can be a one-man show.
No, of course not. No, of course not. President Al-Sisi, of course, when he, for example, on his international trips, for example, to Japan or to Korea, he met with the CEOs of some automotive companies. But the problem is, like I said earlier, their counterparts in Egypt, they try to sabotage any efforts to get those headquarters to Egypt. You know, so one of the Japanese companies said they're going to build a car factory in Asyut, for example, 2 years ago. Many of the CEOs met with Ibrahim Mahlab when he was prime minister, and they promised him that we're going to come and establish a car factory in Egypt. President Sisi and the prime ministers, Ibrahim Mahlab and Shif Ismail, they sat with at least a dozen international car automotive CEOs, and nothing happened so far from their side. So I think they wasted the time of our president and they wasted the time of our prime minister, and they should not sit with them unless they really have a plan to come, and a plan which is already set, not to waste their time and said, okay, we're going to discuss and evaluate the possibility of coming to invest. I don't think that the president...
According to their own interests, not to the national interests. Right,
exactly.
that makes sense. And still with the same issue from Al Masri Al Yom, I guess it's the same thing, presidential directives regarding intensifying supervision on the markets, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that credible international reports confirm that Egypt's economy is on the track and that ongoing economic reform program is fruitful. Of course, that's actually a different piece of news that comes on this banner. It's talking about mainly the economic review.
Yes.
It's being refreshed. And he asserted, President Sisi, the positive outcome of the implemented economic reform program would be achieved thanks to the people's braveness. I mean, it seems that President Sisi is feeling optimistic after all these efforts for the past 2 years.
Of course, he has to feel optimistic. And I think the meeting which he had with the Prime Minister, with the Governor of the Egyptian Central Bank, Tar Amir, and the Minister of Defense and Military Production, and with the heads of the Administrative Control Authority. I think this meeting is extremely important and gives us a very interesting insight, because having the gentleman from the Administrative Audit or Authority or the Control Authority is extremely important, because actually they are now cleaning up the scene in different sectors, in the public sector as well as regarding some contracts, for example, with the private sector. And I think they should be much more engaged in many things, in many business sectors. For example, also in the automotive sector. Again, I'm sorry to take this as an example, but this is something very important, because the parliament has been discussing the so-called automotive strategy recently. And this Egyptian automotive strategy is not only about the automotive sector, it's actually about the future of the Egyptian economy, because with the new Cairo capital we are building right now, mobility and transportation will be extremely important in order to facilitate the moving and the commuting of the people from the new capital to all the other cities as well, also for attracting foreign investors, because not one single foreign investor will come to Egypt if there is a problem with the mobility and the transportation. And by mobility and transportation, I mean affordable transportation, safe transportation,
and quality,
and fuel efficient transportation as well. And this is extremely important. And like I said before, there had been lots of conflicts of interest in different business sectors. We've seen the problems, and we witnessed the problems recently with the wheat sector and the businessmen involved in this. Had also been lots of conflicts of interest in the automotive sector during the past 20 or 30 years. For example, some of the key players and who assemble, for example, American or Korean cars in Egypt were related to certain ministers in some governments, and this gave them some huge advantages in different things, which actually came for disadvantage of the Egyptian government, the Egyptian economy, and of course the Egyptian consumer as well. So I think this is one of the things which the government really needs to take care of during the next couple of years. And they should also, like I said, not listen to the local investors, because unfortunately the local investors are very happy with the huge profit margin they're doing for their own pockets. They make huge money, and then they take this money and invest them outside Egypt. So I think the government really needs to take care of this, especially with the upcoming cabinet reshuffle we're witnessing. Another thing which is also, of course, very positive is that, for example, Denmark and Norway lifted the Sinai travel
ban
warnings recently during the past couple of days. So those are all very, very positive indicators, not only for the Egyptian economy, but also for the Egyptian tourism and the Egyptian reputation in general.
Right, very positive, like you said. I would totally agree on that very positive note.
Yes.
A very positive morning. We'll have to end it here. Mr.
We ran out of time.
Thank you very much for coming over to the Press Digest, Mr. Mohamed Sheta, the media expert.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You have a good day. We're going to go to a short break and we'll come back to you, so stay with us.